The Field of 68 Media Network presents Red is the New Orange, a Syracuse basketball podcast.
Vince intercepts a pass, breakaway for the freshman guard, he flies and slams! Aerial assault from Judah Mintz.
Looking to go back door to Bell, they get it to a near corner three, knocks it down! Chris Bell, the sharpshooter.
Bringing you everything you need to know out of the 315.
Up top, Williams surges ahead, up with the right hand and in. A pretty up and under move from Benny Williams to beat his man.
Over to Taylor, he skips into the lane, puts up a floater, it drops in.
Let's get it started with your hosts, Ian Unsworth and Johnny Gadamowitz.
Well, where does Syracuse basketball go from here? Your best scorer is out. You just lost by 26 points to the number 2 team in the country. Oh, and guess what? ACC play starts today. We'll answer some questions on Red is the New Orange. Ian Unsworth, Johnny Gadamowitz with you as always. And remember to give us a follow on X, F68_Cuse, and drop follows to all the Field of 68 Media Network channels. The guys have been live from Durham. Jeff Goodman was there covering Duke Auburn on Wednesday. That was a crazy game, right? Rob Doster will go from coast to coast. John Fanta knows everything there is to know about the Big East. So those after dark nightly episodes, Monday through Friday, you don't want to miss those. And even on the weekends too, when you got these big conference matchups rolling in the ACC. And the Field of 68 Podcast Network has a podcast for every single team you want to know about. What's going on with Cooper Flagg? Well, the Cameron Crazies can tell you. You want to know what's going on out west? Why is Arizona so bad? Well, the Bear Down podcast is the place you need to be. So follow all those guys because everyone here is doing a great job. It's college basketball season. Yep, conference championship games for football. Syracuse's season is done besides the Cheez-It Bowl or whatever, wherever Fran Brown takes this crew. So
it's a good guess.
Yeah, it's time for college basketball. Johnny, let's rewind to Tuesday afternoon when we learned that JJ Startling is out with a broken left hand, so his non-shooting hand. And Syracuse was going into Thompson Bowling Arena, also known as like the Food Value City Dollar Center.
Yep.
It's Thompson Bowling Arena. You go in there, you face one of the best defenses in the country without your leading scorer. And now this Syracuse team, for the foreseeable future, when you've got Maryland, you've got Notre Dame this Saturday, you've got Georgetown before the meat of conference play, will be without JJ Startling for at least a couple more weeks, if not more.
Yeah, well, Ian, whatever burying the lead is, you just did the opposite of it because there was a bevy of news this week, none more concerning than the Starling injury. And I think this is one where people will tend to overanalyze, try to get cute and figure out solutions. I think it's simple. Without JJ Startling on this basketball team, there's not enough scoring to go around. That is a lot of production offensively that you have to make up. I know he didn't get out to the hottest of starts out of anybody in the country, but even still, this is a guy who is a proven veteran scorer, can do it in conference play. I don't want to say he's proven he can put the team on his back, but probably had the best chance to do so out of anybody on this roster. So it's extremely concerning. Figures it happens right before the Notre Dame game, too. More on that later. But I think primary objective number one for Red and this coaching staff moving forward, and this ties into the Tennessee game because we didn't really see a ton of it, is who steps up. I'm not asking somebody to take JJ Starling's place completely, but I am asking the entirety of the guys in the rotation to try to chip in an extra 2 to 3 points on a game-in, game-out basis, because that's the kind of production you're going to need to make up. I think a lot of people are going to come out of this game and look at the 24 from Elijah Moore and obviously point to him as the guy. And I'm not going to refute that. I think this guy has proven that he can get a bucket and has a very bright future ahead of him.
He's not scared.
He's not scared at all. He's not scared at all. He seems ready for the moment. But let's not shoulder this whole thing on him, right? Let's not forget. This is something that is going to really take a cohesive, collective effort to kind of mitigate for the time being.
JJ Starling's scoring average, almost 20 points a game, buoyed by the 38 career high in the double OT win over Youngstown State. But some deeper numbers, I think, really underscore his value to this team. So JJ played 75% of Syracuse's minutes. That's the most of anyone on the team. All these numbers are Ken Palm numbers. You guys know how much I love them at this point. JJ was handling the ball on over 25% of possessions. And that means controlling the pace, controlling the tempo, et cetera, et cetera. He took shots on 28% of possessions. All three of those numbers are the highest on this Syracuse team. So not only are you losing the guy you trust to score the most, but he has the most plays drawn up for him to get shots. He's probably the guy that you're throwing the ball to in a late game, late shot clock situation, saying, hey, go get us a bucket. And at the end of the game, because Jaquan Carlos has really not had the start we envisioned, Starling's had the ball in his hands to just get it over half court, pure and simple. So you're losing all that. It's not just the scoring. It's the rest of the functioning offense that falls a step below.
Yeah, he is the engine that makes this Syracuse offense go. Without him, you are not going to see nearly as much rhythm offensively. But hey, get a Chance Westry appearance, so maybe he can insert his name
guard.
into the rotation
I
as far
had
as
to
the
go,
backcourt is concerned.
hand up. I had to go back and watch that because I turned the channel with about 4 minutes.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Bottom line, Ian, is this team has a lot of growing up to do and a very short amount of time to figure it out and to grow up and to hopefully, take those leaps and bounds that you need to take in order to just kind of ride the wave, right? Like if they can get through this next month, whatever it is, at 500, right, without their leading scorer, you take that and you run with it. You figure, okay, you get them back hopefully mid-January. Who knows, maybe even worse than that. And then you take your chances in conference play. But even that, exactly, it's glass half full. Tennessee was the better team. We don't, you don't need to listen to us to figure that out.
I mean, I think
it was encouraging.
Everybody who watched the game knew Tennessee was the better team coming in. And the first 3-4 minutes did nothing to change anyone's opinion.
No, not at all. I will say it was encouraging to get to the halftime break, though, and have it like within a punching distance of 10 points.
10 points, and you missed 7 first half free throws.
Yeah.
So it could have been 3.
Which continues to be a problem. It's actually ridiculous year in, year out. It feels like it's a problem every year. I don't know what to attribute it to, but it always rears its ugly head. Thankfully, it wasn't the difference in this game. I think the difference in this game was the mismatch on the interior.
Yeah.
Tennessee had whatever it wanted down low. I believe the number was 44 points in the paint. Double
26 rebounding.
Yeah, double-digit advantage on the glass. And they weren't like head and shoulders, literally and figuratively, bigger per se. But they were just getting after it more. Like guys were following their misses. Box outs were better. People were right place, right time. And Syracuse just didn't really appear ready to get after it on the glass to the same extent.
That and Tennessee's set offense in the first half was pretty ugly. They took some really bad shots, especially Chaz Lanier, who didn't get it going until the second half. He took about 4 or 5 threes in the first half that were cling. And then in the second half, he made 4 of them and finished up with 26 to lead all scorers. But other than that, I mean, Zakai Ziegler really pushed Tennessee up and down the floor for about the first 7-8 minutes. Cade Phillips comes in, gets those offensive rebounds, gives them a spark. And then Syracuse just started turning it over, man. There were some lazy, bad passes thrown in the first half. Tennessee gets in those lanes, and they turned it into fast break points, and the lead ballooned. That's really what it was. And still, even with that halftime break, I don't think much of Orange Nation was mad or annoyed with the deficit. It was just like, make the free throws, man, and this is a game. Nobody expected it to be a game. Let's be clear. And it wasn't in the second half because Tennessee found its rhythm from deep. But the first half was a sign that, okay, this team can play some coherent basketball regardless of who the opponent is. They shot over 50% from the field in the first half. They shot 14 to 25.
Yeah, and another point to kind of drive it home too, I think, just on the offense. And the Starling injury only exacerbates this more, Ian, is just a lack of 3-point shooting on this team. We talked about it last week. This is a game where, hey, you make a couple more threes. Guess what? A 12-point deficit is now only a 5-point deficit, and it's a brand new ball game. There were only 3 different Syracuse players in this game that connected on at least one three-pointer. Only one guy had more than 2 3-point makes. I know it's not your identity. I know it's not who you are, but at a certain point, if you want to win games in 2024, you got to be able to knock it down from the outside. Elijah Moore was the only guy who made more than 2 threes. And you hate to keep beating the Chris Bell drum, but it feels like, again, especially with Starling down, naturally from a volume standpoint, he's the guy that could see a lot of uptick. You just 3 is worth more than 2. You don't need an analytics wizard to tell you that. And you hope that at a certain point, some of those more shots start to be taken. And as more shots are taken, more shots naturally then start to fall.
Syracuse was doing a lot to get Chris Bell the ball off the dribble. And
Yeah.
against a team like Tennessee that guards the ball so well, he's not going to have success in those moments. He needs to be catching and shooting. Lucas Taylor has not been the offensive threat we expected him to be. I think that's pretty clear by this point. I mean, he has more fouls committed than threes taken, which is just a weird dichotomy of a stat. But I mean, he's only taken 9 threes, Johnny, and he's only made one of them. We didn't expect him to be a microwave. Like, we wanted him to be the microwave scorer. But we didn't expect him to be a juggernaut, just to make a couple and make the defense respect you.
And I'm not one to harp too much on, hey, this needs to be your starting 5, because everybody knows it's not who starts, it's who finishes. But frankly, with the Tennessee game, I saw all I need to see. I think there's no reason why Elijah Moore can't be starting. I think, the Starling injury, everybody assumed Lucas Taylor would kind of take that spot. I'm not sold on that. I don't know why the collective of Syracuse's fan base kind of seemed to lean that way. Does it stay that way? Maybe. I don't know. But I think Elijah Moore has certainly proven that he could take that spot. We'll see how those minutes get distributed. Again, it's not the primary item number 1 on the priority list, but I am interested to see how it progresses moving forward.
Well, it is the priority item number 1 if you continue to start slow over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I mean, they were down by 5 points 2.5 minutes in. So they came back, and this is 2.5 minutes in. But if you continue to get down early, then you need to have the best scorers in the game, regardless of if you feel the team is lacking energy or not. All that being said, it was a 26-point game at the end. It wasn't all that close in the second half. And Tennessee, to its credit, shot 61% from the field in the final 20 minutes and made 8 of its 14 second half threes. You could tell that Syracuse just hit a wall. They played with emotion. They put it all out there, but they still had 15 minutes to go. So that's where the game fell flat. And that is why Syracuse is now 4-3. Before its first ACC contest, the early one, Saturday, December 7th, which is today if you're listening, and Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish, have lost 5 straight. Let me read this off to you, Johnny, because this is a pretty interesting list of opponents. Elon beats Notre Dame 84-77 in Purcell Pavilion, Notre Dame's home arena. That's a head scratcher. Then the Fighting Irish headed to Vegas for the Players Era Invitational Festival. We're going to give you $1 million of NIL. I don't exactly know what it is, but it's just another MTE. Played Rutgers. Rutgers has 2 potential top 10 picks. Lost by 1 in overtime. Played Houston. Lost by 11. Houston is the number 5 team on KenPom. And then they played Creighton that Saturday. Creighton just beat number 1 Kansas and lost by 4. Where's the 5th loss, Ian? Oh, it was a 21-point defeat at the hands of the Georgia Bulldogs. And Frank Anselm's on that team, but that is all I can tell you about Georgia. So it seems like Notre Dame, after winning 4 straight, including a victory over Georgetown by 21, is putting together some Jekyll and Hyde performances.
And this is an instance where you did bury the lead here, Ian, because
Yeah.
kind of similarly to Syracuse, they're playing without their best player right now. Non-season ending knee injury for Marcus Burton. Things appear like he will not play tomorrow, or
Recording this
today if you're
Friday night.
listening.
Yep.
Yep, today if this is when you're listening. But knees, you always want to be careful. So needless to say, they are not going to rush back their leading scorer, and for good reason. So these are two teams that are really just trying to weather the storm right now. But you're right. You look at the recent results, and it is very, very puzzling. Notre Dame is just trying to get back to that early season form. You mentioned it. They started the year with 4 straight wins. Let's remember, this is a team that was not very good in conference play last year. It feels like it's been a little while since they found themselves at the tail end of February, right in the thick of things. But for the Irish, this is a game where you really need to set the tone. You're returning home. You have a couple of bad losses, a couple of encouraging losses, but it feels like a get right game. Kind of an even playing field almost. A game that, if you're a Notre Dame fan, you walk into not feeling great about, but feeling good about. The question is, what version of Notre Dame do we see? Do we see the one that got smoked by Georgia, or do we see the one that was hanging with Creighton and was hanging with Rutgers? Braden Shrewsbury obviously becomes the guy
He's the
with
coach's
Marcus
son.
Burton down. Yep, coach's son. So he is your it guy, so to speak. But yeah, it is weird, some of the parallels kind of that you can look at these two teams with star player injured and a couple of head scratching results, whether it be for better or for worse.
Yeah, Shrewsbury, son of Micah Shrewsbury, in his second year at Notre Dame. They got him from Penn State, and he is a coach on the rise, trying to get Notre Dame back to the NCAA tournament. And I mean, Notre Dame really hasn't been all of that relevant basketball wise since Jeremy Grant was there, former New York Knick. Um, but there's a decent amount of talent on this team. Tay Davis from Seton Hall averages 14 a game. He's more of your slasher wing. And then Matt Alaco, who is a Princeton transfer and doesn't necessarily look like the most spectacular athlete when you watch him play, but he is feisty. I mean, he was yapping with Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, Rutgers' 2 star freshmen, till the final buzzer. And that game is when Marcus Burton went down, and Notre Dame still rallied together and found a way to take the Scarlet Knights into OT. And they had a little mic on Matalaco, and he was yapping it up with these guys, talking trash, and you would have thought they were playing on a little blacktop.
Right.
So he's fearless, and he's been there before. You probably have seen Princeton make NCAA tournament runs. You know this. You know what's going on over there with the Tiger program. So I don't think Notre Dame, even though they have a big hole in the production side of things, is going to come into this game scared. And I also think they'll get a pretty good crowd. First ACC game, they've got some Wear Green promotion going on. And that's a pretty cool building, and it also feels pretty small. It feels like the court is a little on top of you. So I think this is a unique environment that Syracuse is going into. And I'm not going to lie, Johnny, I'm a little worried. I'm a
Yeah,
little
I
worried.
mean, I think that's an appropriate feeling. I'm not going to say that I am worried per se to the same extent that maybe you're willing to, but could I see a world where Syracuse loses this game pretty handily? Yeah, I absolutely could. The interesting thing for me is the fact that Notre Dame tempo wise per Ken Palm is at 307.
Hmm.
They like to slow it down. They like to get into their sets. They like to run their half court offense. So if I'm Red Autry, and again, he knows a heck of a lot more than I do. I'm trying to get them all out of sorts. I'm trying to push the pace. I'm trying to play fast. I'm trying to let Jaquan Carlos be the facilitator and get Donnie Freeman flying up and down the court and get them sort of out of their comfort zone. And that is something that you wish you had JJ Starling for, but just because you don't doesn't mean you shy away from it either.
Yeah, I don't know. The play fast thing this year hasn't.
I know it's felt better in theory than in practice.
Yeah, because other teams are content to play fast with Syracuse, and then Syracuse is the one that gets tired of playing fast.
Right.
So we'll see. Notre Dame does have traditional bigs. Keba J is their starter, 6'10, 250. Penn State transfer makes a whole lot of sense. But that means you can have Eddie Lampkin on the floor for extended stretches. And these bigs were, I mean, Tennessee's bigs are two of the best defensive big men, Milicic and Okpara, that we'll see all year. I mean, the lasting visual in my head is Lampkin trying to get post position on the right block and Okpara with his like eraser extendo arms just reach. He takes his right arm, reaches across his body and Lampkin's body,
Yep.
and knocks away an entry pass. And that was just the summation of Lampkin's night. He didn't really have any rhythm or any chance to get going. So if we're talking about where's the scoring coming from, that's another source that has to be tapped into now that we're playing Power 5 competition on a consistent basis. Syracuse has to figure out a way to get Eddie Lampkin the ball and keep him on the floor because there will be other bigs, not 6'8" dudes that run around and shoot threes on the floor.
Totally. And you hope that production comes because you can't bank on getting through these next couple weeks or months, dare I say, without JJ hoping to get by with 63 to 60 wins. Like this defense is not that good to a point where you can get by without scoring a lot of points. Like we know they're going to have to score. This injury doesn't change that. And I said off the top of the show, it's on everybody. You can make the case Eddie Lampkin maybe is the most important individual whose piece of the pie now becomes that much bigger because of how things have shaped up. We'll see how he fares against the Irish, obviously going up against some more of those traditional bigs like you alluded to. But you would think coming off of what he had to deal with against Tennessee, it's a little more comfortable, a little more, okay, yeah, I can hang. I could do this. I could go have myself a good game because I think me and you both know Ian Syracuse needs it, and they need it pretty bad.
Yeah, Lampkin would be a much needed breather for the guards. And we'll see if Elijah Moore can have another great road performance. 24 points in a hostile environment like Tennessee is rather unheard of from most Syracuse freshmen of the past couple of years. So he is certainly an outlier, and his attitude, his approach, he plays like it. So hopefully that continues, and hopefully Syracuse can really hang in there against Notre Dame. It's a
Noon game,
tip,
right?
a
Yeah.
noon tip on the CW,
Oh,
who has given up football for basketball. I don't know if Tom Brenneman's going to be anywhere close to this, but there's no Castellanoses for him. So either way, it should be an intriguing watch. Noon tip on the CW. And of course, we'll be back Sunday to chat about that and preview Syracuse's next game, which is, drum roll please, Maryland, Georgetown, UAlbany. There we go. The Great Danes, Tuesday at 7 o'clock, back in the Dome. So we'll catch